something felt different in Cincinnati. Amanda Anisimova entered the $7.4 million Cincinnati Open as the number 9 seed and the world number 10, carrying the resume of a proven superstar. A former world number 3, a two-time Grand Slam finalist, and one of the most dangerous players on the WTA Tour, Anisimova had every reason to believe experience would give her the advantage. But there was one massive problem. Alex Eala had already made a career out of destroying expectations. And as thousands of Filipino supporters filled the Linder Family Tennis Center, the question wasn't whether the atmosphere would be intense. It was how Anisimova would handle it when the entire stadium seemed to explode behind Alex. Long before the first ball was struck, the energy was impossible to ignore. Philippine flags filled the stands. Chants echoed around the venue. Fans arrived wearing national colors and proudly supporting their rising tennis star. For a moment, it felt less like an ordinary WTA match and more like a huge international sporting spectacle. Anisimova knew exactly what she was walking into. She had never faced Eala before, making this matchup even more intriguing. There was no previous head-to-head history to rely on and no personal experience of how Alex constructed points or responded to pressure. Both players had to solve a completely unfamiliar puzzle from the opening game. And Alex arrived with plenty of confidence. Her previous Cincinnati appearance ended when Elena Gabriela Ruse retired because of a right foot injury, but Eala had already established control before the match was cut short. She was stepping forward, taking the ball early, attacking second serves, and refusing to give her opponent comfortable time. That was becoming a familiar sight. Alex wasn't simply hanging around against higher-ranked opponents anymore. She was making them react to her. That distinction mattered, because Anisimova was not just another player trying to break through. She was a proven elite competitor who had reached the French Open semifinals as a teenager and later established herself deep inside the upper tier of women's tennis. Her recent Grand Slam results and WTA 1000 success had only strengthened her reputation as a player capable of producing devastating tennis when she found her rhythm. Power, experience, aggression, confidence. Anisimova had all of it. But Alex had something that had become increasingly difficult for opponents to deal with: fearless belief. Throughout the season, Eala had already defeated several top 10 opponents, including Madison Keys, Jasmine Paolini, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, and Elena Rybakina. Each victory added another layer to a growing reputation. The pattern was becoming impossible to dismiss. Give Alex even a small opening, and she could turn it into something much bigger. 7 top 10 victories in a single season was already an extraordinary achievement. But Cincinnati offered another opportunity to prove that those wins were not isolated surprises. This time, the challenge was Amanda Anisimova, a top 10 star, a major finalist, a player Alex had never encountered before. And waiting inside the stadium was a crowd ready to make every point feel enormous. The pressure was real. The opponent was dangerous. The stage was massive. But Alex Eala had already shown that she doesn't run from moments like this. She runs toward them. And when the Filipino crowd found its voice, Cincinnati was about to discover exactly how loud that belief could become. Thousands of Filipino supporters transformed the Cincinnati Stadium into a wall of noise, color, and emotion. Philippine flags waved throughout the stands, chants rolled across the venue, and every time Alex Eala produced a big shot, the reaction became even louder. A routine tennis point suddenly felt like a major sporting moment. For Amanda Anisimova, this was going to be a completely different kind of challenge. The American had made it clear that she enjoyed competing in packed stadiums and believed crowd energy could work in her favor. But there is a major difference between playing in front of a loud audience and competing in an environment where thousands of people are emotionally invested in your opponent. Cincinnati was becoming Alex's territory. And she had already experienced this kind of atmosphere across North America. Wherever Eala had gone, Filipino supporters had followed. They had turned regular WTA matches into celebrations, bringing flags, chants, and an energy that made her matches feel unlike almost anything else on the calendar. Naomi Osaka had previously described the atmosphere surrounding Alex as something resembling a basketball game. Once the Cincinnati match began, it was easy to understand that comparison. Every rally seemed louder. Every change of momentum created another eruption. A powerful winner from Alex could send the entire stadium into chaos, while even a small opening created immediate anticipation among the supporters. But there was another side to all that passion. Expectation. When thousands of people arrive believing you can win, their support can become pressure. One loose game can suddenly make an entire crowd nervous. One missed break point can create tension. Against a player with Anisimova's firepower, allowing emotions to take over could be extremely costly. Alex needed something more than talent. She needed composure. She needed patience. And most importantly, she needed to trust her game. That was what made her performance so fascinating. Instead of looking overwhelmed by the occasion, Alex appeared increasingly comfortable inside it. The bigger the moment became, the more naturally she seemed to play. She wasn't trying to escape the spotlight. She was embracing it. Anisimova entered Cincinnati with the resume of a top 10 star. Alex arrived with something that statistics could not fully capture: momentum. Since winning the Washington title, Eala had built an extraordinary run of form, winning 8 of her previous 9 matches. Every victory was pushing her closer to another major milestone in the rankings. A place inside the world's top 16 was suddenly within reach. That mattered far beyond bragging rights. A top 16 position could potentially provide a protected seed at the US Open, giving Alex a better chance of avoiding certain dangerous opponents in the early rounds. Suddenly, every match in Cincinnati carried significance beyond the scoreboard. This was no longer simply about defeating another famous player. Alex was trying to reshape her position in women's tennis. And that changed the way her recent victories had to be viewed. At first, every win over a top 10 opponent could be dismissed as an upset. Critics could say the favorite had a bad day. They could blame conditions, momentum, pressure, or one unlucky stretch of points. But eventually, the excuses become harder to sustain. When the same player repeatedly defeats elite opponents, the word upset starts losing its meaning. Something has changed. Alex has changed. Her tennis has developed. Her confidence has grown. Her decision-making under pressure has improved. And perhaps most importantly, opponents are beginning to approach her differently. They can no longer assume she will simply admire their ranking. Anisimova's pre-match comments reflected that reality. She wasn't treating Alex like some unknown newcomer who had suddenly wandered onto a big stage. She understood the challenge waiting on the other side of the net. She knew the atmosphere would be intense. She knew Alex was enjoying an incredible stretch of tennis. And she knew that stepping onto the court meant entering the center of something much larger than a normal first-round or second-round matchup. Still, Anisimova had every reason to believe she could win. She had competed against the best players in the world. She had handled enormous stages. She had reached Grand Slam finals and played matches where the pressure was immense. Noise wasn't going to scare her. Reputation wasn't going to scare her. That was precisely what made this matchup so compelling. These were two players arriving at the same court from completely different directions. Anisimova had already reached the biggest stages in tennis and built a reputation as an established star. Alex was rapidly forcing her way into that same conversation. One player had the ranking. The other had the momentum. One had years of experience at the highest level. The other had the hunger of someone who still felt she had something to prove. And surrounding them was a Cincinnati crowd waiting for one thing, an Alex Eala moment. Then it happened. Alex walked onto the court. The reaction was immediate. The volume rose. Philippine flags moved through the stands. Fans stood, shouted, waved, and welcomed their favorite player like she was entering a championship final. For Alex, it was another reminder of how far the story had traveled. For Anisimova, it was the beginning of a battle unlike any she had experienced against Alex before. And for everyone watching, one question remained. Could Alex turn all that energy into another unforgettable victory? The pressure surrounding Alex Eala was enormous. Thousands of Filipino supporters had come to Cincinnati expecting something special, and their hopes were now resting on every point she played. But instead of allowing that pressure to overwhelm her, Alex seemed to turn it into energy. This was no longer just about one tennis player competing for herself. Alex was carrying the excitement of a rapidly growing fan base that had followed her journey across the world. Yet once the opening point began, all of that had to disappear. Tennis becomes brutally straightforward when the match is underway. One ball, one decision, 1 point at a time. Against Amanda Anisimova, there was no room for hesitation. Alex had to remain aggressive without becoming careless. She needed to attack without handing Anisimova easy chances. She had to disrupt the American's rhythm, force uncomfortable decisions, and make her feel pressure on almost every point. Most importantly, Alex needed to demonstrate that her previous victories over top 10 opponents were not isolated surprises. And as the match progressed, that argument became increasingly difficult to challenge. Alex wasn't playing like someone hoping to create a miracle. She was playing like someone who believed she belonged. That distinction is enormous. An underdog often enters a match looking for ways to survive. A confident contender enters looking for opportunities to impose her game. Alex had reached a stage in her development where simply staying close to an elite opponent was no longer enough. She wanted to push back. She wanted to dictate. And against a player with Anisimova's experience and firepower, that mentality became critical. Whenever Anisimova appeared ready to establish control, Alex found a response. Whenever the American began building momentum, Eala disrupted it. A rally that seemed to be moving in Anisimova's direction could suddenly change after one aggressive return or one perfectly timed shot from Alex. The crowd felt every shift. A big Alex point produced another eruption from the stands. A long rally created suspense before the supporters exploded again. With every momentum swing, the atmosphere became more intense. For Anisimova, the challenge was no longer simply defeating another opponent. She was trying to defeat a player, a game plan, and an entire stadium's emotional energy at the same time. As the match moved toward its decisive stages, the tension became almost impossible to ignore. Fans were standing. Philippine flags were waving. Every point carried enormous weight. And Alex remained composed. That was perhaps the clearest sign of how much she had developed. Think about the player standing across the net. Anisimova was a world number 10, a former world number 3, and a two-time Grand Slam finalist. She had already established herself on the biggest stages and had won major WTA 1000 titles. Alex had never faced her before. There was no previous match to draw confidence from. No head-to-head advantage. No familiarity with how Anisimova would react in specific situations. Everything had to be figured out in real time. And somehow, Alex found the answers. When the final moments arrived, the crowd seemed to sense what was coming. The tension transformed into anticipation. Fans were waiting for the moment when they could finally release everything they had been holding inside. Then came the finish. The stadium erupted. Alex Eala had done it. Another top 10 opponent had been defeated. And with that victory, her career tally against top 10 players reached double figures. 10 victories against some of the strongest players in women's tennis. That number carried far more meaning than a statistic. It represented a transformation. These were players who entered matches with higher rankings, greater experience, and established reputations. Yet one by one, Alex had begun proving that those advantages did not guarantee anything once the match started. The conversation around her was changing. Alex was no longer simply a promising young player with an exciting future. She was becoming a genuine threat. And perhaps the most important part of the Cincinnati victory was what it suggested about what comes next. This isn't the same Alex Eala fans were watching a year ago. Her game has developed. Her confidence has grown. Her ability to handle pressure has become stronger. She has learned how to compete against players who once seemed almost untouchable. More importantly, she has started to understand how to use pressure instead of allowing pressure to control her. The fans celebrated because they had witnessed another huge victory. But something bigger was happening beneath the celebration. Alex was building a reputation. A reputation that tells every elite opponent the same thing. Playing Alex Eala is no longer an easy assignment. Soon, whenever her name appears alongside a top-ranked opponent in a tournament draw, the question will sound different. It won't simply be, can Alex compete with her? It will be, can that player handle Alex? That is a dramatic shift. It is the kind of shift that separates a talented young athlete from someone capable of becoming a genuine force on tour. Cincinnati gave Alex another opportunity to prove that she belongs in that conversation, and she seized it. The stadium exploded. Filipino supporters celebrated. Another top 10 name joined her growing list of victories. But perhaps the most important part of the night wasn't the number attached to her record. It was the message. Alex's story is nowhere near finished. She entered Cincinnati chasing ranking points, a deep tournament run, and the possibility of strengthening her position heading toward the US Open. Instead, she left with something far more valuable. Another piece of evidence that she can defeat the biggest names in women's tennis when the spotlight is brightest. And now the rest of the tour has to pay attention. The next time Alex walks onto a packed stadium court, opponents won't be wondering who she is. They'll already know. They'll know about the Philippine flags. They'll know about the chants. They'll know about the growing army of supporters. They'll know about the top 10 victories. And they'll know that Alex Eala has become increasingly dangerous when the stage gets bigger. That may be the most remarkable part of the Cincinnati story. The Alex effect isn't limited to the stands anymore. It is showing up on the scoreboard. It is changing matches. It is changing expectations. And every time another elite opponent falls, that effect becomes harder for the tennis world to ignore. Alex Eala isn't simply creating noise around the sport. She's giving the sport a reason to listen. The first meeting between Alex Eala and Amanda Anisimova was already loaded with expectations. But nobody could have known just how significant this Cincinnati showdown would become. Alex entered the match with the confidence of a player who had been steadily proving herself against elite competition. Her previous encounter with Elena Gabriela Ruse had ended prematurely after the Romanian retired with a right foot injury. Yet before the retirement, Eala had already established control, attacking aggressively, stepping inside the court, and refusing to let Ruse settle into a comfortable rhythm. That result carried an extra layer of meaning. Ruse was the same player who had defeated Alex during US Open qualifying in 2024, ending her hopes of reaching the main draw. Nearly 2 years later, the circumstances were completely different. Alex didn't need a dramatic revenge speech or a statement afterward. Her tennis said everything. She had grown. She had evolved. And she had become a much more dangerous player. But there was barely any time to enjoy that progress because Cincinnati immediately presented an even bigger challenge. Standing across the net was Amanda Anisimova. The American entered as the world number 10 and the 9th seed, with a resume that already placed her among the sport's established stars. She had captured 4 WTA singles titles, including 2 WTA 1000 championships in 2025, and had reached both the Wimbledon and US Open finals in the same season. That alone demonstrated how comfortable Anisimova was when the spotlight became brightest. Her rise had started remarkably young too. As a teenager, she defeated established opposition and made history at Roland Garros by becoming the youngest American woman of the Open era to reach the French Open semifinals. So this wasn't simply another difficult opponent for Alex. It was a test against someone who already understood what it meant to compete on tennis's biggest stages. And there was another element that made the matchup especially unpredictable. Alex and Anisimova had never faced one another. There was no head-to-head record. No previous match to analyze together. No first-hand knowledge of how either player would react when the pressure reached its highest point. For Alex, the challenge was essentially a live puzzle. She would have to figure out Anisimova's patterns while simultaneously trying to impose her own game. But by this stage of the season, Alex had developed something that a ranking cannot measure: belief. Before Cincinnati, she had already collected 9 victories over top 10 opponents. Players such as Madison Keys, Jasmine Paolini, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, and Elena Rybakina had all experienced the same uncomfortable reality. Alex Eala wasn't intimidated by reputations. She didn't step onto the court assuming she was supposed to lose. She stepped on believing she could win. That mindset was about to face another major examination. Anisimova also knew the atmosphere would be intense. She had spoken about the challenge of playing in front of a crowd expected to heavily support Alex, and said she wanted to embrace the energy rather than allow it to become a distraction. Her confidence was understandable. Anisimova had competed in packed stadiums. She had played Grand Slam finals. She knew how to handle enormous pressure. But Cincinnati offered something different. This wasn't simply a loud crowd supporting a player. It was a fan base deeply emotionally invested in Alex. Every Eala winner could trigger another eruption from the stands. And as the two players prepared for their first ever battle, one thing was already clear. Anisimova wasn't just facing Alex Eala. She was stepping directly into the Alex phenomenon.